Dagara Music Center, to my knowledge, was founded and directed by Bernard Warmer, the late Bernard Warmer, and it started in the year 2000. And since that, it's been hosting for about 5,000 or more of students here. And the main teachings that we have for students here is about Dagara traditional music, like the Gyil, and also drumming as well. And aside of that, we also have the artistic aspect, and that is the learning of dancing, kente weaving, basket weaving, and also batik, tie and dye. Yeah, so those are the main targets that we provide to students here at the DMC.
And I think, just to maybe add on to that a little bit, Mr. Bernard Woma, when he founded it, he really was interested in the promotion of exchange, and he had been doing his studies in the United States at a few different educational institutions, and so he became really involved in the idea of using this space as a way to promote both artistic and educational cross-cultural exchange. So the majority of our students over the past 20 years have been affiliated in some way with universities or other educational institutions, particularly music students, music education students. Although we have students who come from all over, who come from outside of educational institutions. But we mostly serve and have served for 20 years. Music students, music educators, ethnomusicologists, and other people that are interested in particularly the intersection of music, art, dance, and broader cultural traditions and ways of life and whatnot.
Well, this place, so 8 years ago was the 10th anniversary, so it must be 18 years in the making and still growing. And you can look around at the wall. I'm sure you have a great panoramic picture of the wall, right? And just see all of the colleges and universities and other community groups that have come. And it works two ways. I mean, the DMC feeds interest in the U.S. and the U.S., the tours that Sakunu do, then feeds the DMC, creates interest in. I know that Bernard's intention was to maintain the tradition and to share it.
So with Bernard's idea and also his love for kids and also education, he decided to target various schools nearby the DMC. So he always go for the kids and then teach them the traditional music and dance, so that in the future, when the outdoors are beginning to retire, the kids can take over.
It's a giving and sharing of the culture and wanting to preserve it through the youth. And I think we saw that at the funeral in Medie on Saturday when the young children danced. Yeah.
When I was 16 years old, I met Mr. Bernard Woma, the founder and creator of the Dagara Music Center. And I was encouraged to go and see him perform because I had suffered the loss of a very dear friend. And I began delving into music in a way that was evident to my teachers that it was therapeutic for me. And it was the only thing that was allowing this experience to have meaning. And my teacher said, there's a guy from Africa that plays the xylophone with healing powers. And if you're interested in music as a therapy, perhaps you should go and check it out. And I said, I don't know about all that, but I'll go and I'll see. And when I heard this man play the xylophone for the first time, I had an out-of-body experience in that everybody in the room vanished. And it was just me and Bernard, and the music was pulling something out of me and coming out, and it was just a very profound moment in time. And by the time he played his last note, my teacher poked me and said, "Hey, are you okay?" And unbeknownst to me, I've been crying, just crying silently, without worry of anybody watching me. The music had reached a part of me that I didn't know really even existed before. And I just said, yeah, I'm great. I've never felt like this before. I don't know where that instrument's coming from, but I'm going to find out. And it led me to Fredonia to study with Bernard. And so when he first brought me to the Dagara Music Center, only a couple of years later, I came to realize that his vision was not just one of cultural preservation, but one of healing. This man had the ability to heal with his craft, with his art, and not just to heal, emotional wounds or physical wounds, but to heal the relationship of Africa and the Western world, to open up a dialogue so that we can learn from one another these things that are missing in our cultures. There's a proverb that says the right hand washes the left and the left hand washes the right. And he believed very deeply that he had something of value to the world. And that if he could just show the world the little bit that he knows, the conversation would be open. The floodgates would be open. And he would be able to, in turn, learn something from the rest of the world, which he did. Coming to Fredonia and getting his bachelor's degree, continuing on to Indiana University and obtaining 2 master's degrees, lecturing and teaching at every major university across the country, as well as countless elementary schools, middle schools, and high schools. Together, over the past 10 years, we've exposed over 40,000 students a year to Dagara culture.
I know you say, what does Ghana mean to you or to me? It's about the people. It's about the people. And I guess for me, music is like that anyway. It's a means of communication. And if you analyze the structure of the music, I think you analyze the structure of the environment and of the people. And there are many different people here.
And when I first came to Ghana, the thing that really struck me was how deeply rooted the cultural identity is in all of these various ethnic groups and how it's preserved through the music and dance. And it's ancient. And it's something that even though I didn't grow up in this culture, it resonates with me in a very deep, profound kind of way. And through my experience in exploring Ghanaian music and dance, I have come to find that it's not me alone that has this resonance. And I think Ghana, being the first country in West Africa to gain their independence and to be so proud of their cultural heritage, Ghana to me means Sankofa. Go back and fetch it. Go back to the root. Go back to where you came and understand the nature of humanity through the history. Yeah, I would say the majority of the time we spend here at the Dagara Music Center in Medie. But we also do excursions. We travel up to the north to see Mole National Park, xylophone festivals in the north from Laura and Nundum, and we also travel to the coast, Cape Coast, Elmina Castle and Cape Coast Castle are very important parts of the trip because they hold a cultural significance and a historical significance that is very prevalent in our American society. Knowing the history of the transatlantic slave trade is one thing to read out of a book. It's another thing to be there and to experience it and to take it in and understand what the aftermath is and how these relics of the past are now being used as teaching centers so that these atrocities may never happen again. And I think it's a vitally important part of the trip here to Ghana.
What has been your students' experience coming here?
In a word, transformational. Not just in how you view Africa, but how you view life. Where I live, there's lots of sirens, there's lots of cars, there's lots of unnatural sounds. And here, you know, in Accra, you get the sounds of the city also. But one thing that I found really striking just this past weekend, being up in Hiniting for Bernard's funeral, you know, we listened to the day bugs in birds, switch to the night bugs in birds and frogs, and it's really prevalent in the sonic space. The frogs in particular are so loud that as you're walking by, it almost hurts your ears. It's so loud, it's a part of your environment. It's a part of your learning environment, therefore. And so, you know, being in tune with the food that you're eating. Everybody is farming. If you're not a farmer, you still farm. You still grow something. As far as meat production and things, I mean, it's running around the day that you consume it. And we're very much detached from that back home. And when you're living in nature and you experience this way of living, you know, it gives you a deeper appreciation for the materials that you are imbibing and using in your everyday life. And so when you get here, with whatever preconceived notion you have of Africa, through the experiential learning, you know, that happens here, you open yourself up to become a new person. You are able to shift your perspective in a way that you wouldn't be able to if you didn't, as the Ghanaian proverb says, travel and see. And once you have that experience, you don't want to keep it for yourself, because now you know what that feels like. Now you want to share it with somebody else. You want to invite somebody else into that world and say, hey, look at this cool thing that I learned. Why don't you sit down? I'd love to show you something about it. And maybe one day you'll travel there with me and you'll get to see it firsthand. And I think there's something very powerful in that storytelling too. You know, it puts your life in a trajectory. You know, it tells the story. This is where I grew, this is where I've been, this is what I've experienced, and now this is what I want to experience next as a result of this. And if you don't ever go anywhere, you don't ever do anything, you don't get that opportunity.
So when I first came to Ghana, I met the family. Everybody started singing my name every time I walked by, which was so endearing. It made me feel so at home. And the longer that I've been here, the more at home they make me feel. Everybody's so kind and passionate and generous and like goes above and beyond to make sure that things are going well. And I just adore the people that work and live at the center.
It's a testament to the DMC's role in this community that not only that we feel so welcome, but that there are so many people like neighbors' kids and just neighbors who seem to be there all the time just because it's a good place to be. You know?
Yeah, I love how people come in and out all the time without calling or arranging.
Right.
And it's just a community. Like, it feels so different than in America where you have to arrange for somebody to come over and it's a big deal, and here it just feels so welcome and open and free.
Yeah.
I love it.
Tension is kind of, there really isn't any, except when they like insist on doing things for you and cleaning up after you, and you're just like, no, like, please.
The one thing I have not enjoyed is how many people ask if they are your wife or if you will marry them.
Okay. You know, there's the town drunks, but they got those at home too.
We've all got them.
So that's the only negative, but it's, I mean, come on, I'm not trying to come to a, what's the word, like a resort where you're shielded from what's really going on. And yeah, a drunk dude might talk your ear off for 45 minutes, but that's going to happen everywhere. And like, if you were protected from all that, then it wouldn't be, it wouldn't be the real thing. So it's fine. It's manageable. No reason not. That's not a reason not to come, I'd say.
And we haven't even mentioned the music lessons yet. And that was like the reason I came, but that also has been amazing. They're such good teachers. And it's funny because the differences in the way we kind of look at music do sometimes show. Like, for example, like when they would teach us the Gyil part and then you'd learn it comes in on the and of 3, but you had no reason to believe that when they were just like, here's how it goes, and they'd start. But it was fun to kind of challenge yourself to try to not depend on knowing it comes in on the end of 3 or something like that, to try to think African maybe music, which I can't. I learned I just can't. I need to know the end of 3.
I've loved learning by rote. It's something that as a musician you don't usually, like, somebody doesn't usually teach you by rote. They give you music and say, like, play this. And it's been really fun to connect more with the music because there isn't any written down, and I just feel more, like, connected to the music because it's in my heart instead of in my brain. Right. So I've loved learning by rote.
It's kind of cool because when you learn by rote, you also are learning with someone. Mm-hmm. So it's like there's a social interaction that's happening too as you're learning.
So my reason to come in the first place was similar to Sarah's in that it's for my students. 50% for my students, 50% for me. Where that line is, I don't know. But I'm always telling my students that all American music has its roots in West Africa, and but I realize I don't know anything about West Africa. I knew a few songs, just like you said, from my music textbooks that we would do, and so, but I was winging it, and I felt like it was. I owe it to them to try to understand this music a little better and to share it in a more, accurate sort of way. And I've actually learned, I don't feel done. It's not like I spent 2 weeks here and now I know how to teach West African music. If anything, it's just opened my eyes to how little I know, which is good. It's good to know how little you know. It's a little bit of knowledge can be a dangerous thing. But so I'll have to be coming back, and I imagine I'll be coming back pretty regularly, as often as I can afford it, because it's amazing what they teach here. I feel that I've grown as a musician here and just gained a lot of perspective that you just can't get from a YouTube video or something like that.
Yeah, I came here to become a better teacher, but I didn't think that it would change my life personally. Like, I didn't think that I would grow so much as a person, and I didn't think it would change my core so much. So,
in what ways?
Like, I just feel more open, and I feel like more strong than I ever thought I was, and I've never been more independent, and it's been really eye-opening to experience a new place by myself as a woman, and the fear of like traveling alone and stuff is really scary, but I feel like I can do anything, and I just, I feel a sense of purpose here, and like my heart and soul is happy, so.
The DMC is wonderful. The staff are super welcoming, very friendly, and they make sure we feel at home. And not only do they teach us our drumming or Gyil playing or dancing and singing, but they also hang out with us and take us on excursions and take us around town. So it's a really kind of collaborative experience, and you really get to make connections with people here.
I wanted to bring the students to DMC as a top priority because I've had the same experience before. I felt very comfortable. It's it's outside of Accra, which I think is nice for the students, especially some of our students have never been on an airplane before. They haven't done, and several other ones have not traveled internationally before. And when most Americans travel, I think they travel to other developed countries in Europe especially. But coming to Ghana can be a bigger cultural shock because it's so different in so many ways from the U.S. But the DMC, they're used to receiving foreigners, and they're organized, they're responsible, they're on time, they're trustworthy, and for me personally, they're friends now, and so it's also important to me that I know what they offer here is quality, and I want to give them the work because it's their livelihood. I know that this is how a lot of them make their living, and this is the profession they've chosen. And because we have that relationship, I wanted to be respectful and bring my students here to continue that lineage.
It has been a really big change from back home, but change is good, and I think all of the changes here, it's definitely been good changes. It hasn't been anything that you can't adjust to. It's all been just a really great time overall.
Yeah, I think it's all really just about attitude, and if you're having a good attitude about things, then it's easier for you to accept the differences and adapt to them quicker.
It's been fantastic. I know we were all pretty worried about like the food and stuff when we were coming in because everything's completely different. It's different countries. There's a lot of risk for some upset stomachs when we come, but I haven't had a problem with the food really, and it's been delicious. Rita is a fantastic cook, and she's also just like a really great person. It's like having another family. Like they just accept you as you are when you come in. They don't even know who you are, but they love you. It's really nice.
Yeah, it's like, especially the women here, whenever we came here, I mean, Rita kissed me on the cheek and hugged me and told me she loved me before we even walked in the door. So she definitely feels like a second mom. I mean, everybody here, like you said, it's definitely like another family, very welcoming.
We have so many food to make of the students. Sometimes we make the local food and some food, maybe sometimes I can make a banku and fufu, rice and a lot of things. So maybe if I make it like this, they can choose whatever they want to eat. Some people too like banku and fufu with lisu. The favorite food, I think they like rice and garlic rice and vegetable soup, and we have beef sauce and so many things to do. All the food, I think they like it. Yeah.
I've had an incredible experience so far, personally. We've only been here a little bit more than a week, and we've had so many different opportunities to play many different styles of music, and also to like meet local members of Medie and Accra, and it's just been a very, very positive experience. And
they're really good teachers too when they're teaching us the dances and the songs and stuff. They're never harsh about it because we can't do it as well as they can. Yeah. We won't be able to, but they're really accepting of that, and they just work with what we give them.
Well, at first the lessons were really fast paced, and it was just a lot different than back home. But that is it. You adjust to it, and they also adjust to your learning styles as well. And they definitely don't give you anything that they don't think you can handle. So, yeah,
I think it's important because, I mean, and this is a lot of both kind of like our institutional belief, but I think also like our individual belief and the people who work and live here at the DMC is that music and other forms of artistic expression and kind of cultural practices that are really centered on creativity and particularly music in the case of the DMC, but that it's important because all of these forms of expression are ways that we can connect and are ways that we can build relationships. And at the end of the day, yes, it's important that our students, whether they are from Ghana or from abroad, they might learn a new skill. They might learn how to play the Gyil or play a different, learn new drum patterns or dance a different dance. But at the end of the day, it's about building those relationships. And I think, we see that the community that has been built from the DMC, both locally, abroad, is incredible. Like the relationships that have been built. And I think in many ways, people might say kind of in spite of, differences, geographical backgrounds, different kind of walks of life from all over. And that's not, I think our world as it is right now doesn't often prioritize that, those kind of connected relationships. Or they see it as something that takes a lot of kind of, engineering to create that kind of connectivity and that bond. But here at the DMC, it happens organically through the playing of music, through dancing together, through just spending time all in one place where that's kind of our focus. And to me, that's what makes it important. That this is a space where not only people are learning, but it's a place where people are building relationships.
That go, that's a powerful
It really does.
Yeah, and also that connection makes, I remember a group of students came by the DMC. They spent like a few weeks, and then before they go, they decide to paint a wall, because at the DMC, when you show up with a group, you have to paint a wall to show that you've been here. And on the wall, they wrote in a native language, in the Dagara language, that Same Lebat means visitors turn into friends and family. So in these walls, you come in, the moment you step inside the wall, you are no more a stranger. You are a family. And then we treat you as a family, and also after that, you get to realize that the importance of this place is not only to welcome visitors, but to welcome family that are gone for a very long time and are showing up again.
I don't think you can come here and not have the culture in your heart. I would see it's impossible. It kind of grabs you, At least that's what the students express to me.
Well, certainly, as percussionists, a lot of the music we study has roots in Africa. The connections that we can make here apply to so many of the things that they study when they're in university. So that certainly makes it very applicable to their studies. But also, I think is a really eye-opening experience to see how others live and cultures that are very different than ours, and experiencing that anywhere, but particularly Ghana is, just a very moving experience for, I think, all of us.
Yeah, so there's certainly the curricular element. At UT Martin, we definitely study a lot of Afro-diasporic music. And so not only learning that music from me or from Chelsea, but experiencing it firsthand gives them ownership of the things that they're learning and allows them to make their own conclusions about certain things. So also, of course, studying with people who have dedicated their entire life to this music gives it the respect that it deserves. And the students can get instruments and learn about technique and develop some of those things. One of the nice things about the DMC is that we get practice time, we get significant amount of lesson time. You can take private lessons as well. And so, I've seen the students' technique grow on djembe specifically more here than it has in a year of my own teaching, because we have so many other things to do. It's not a priority. So that's a big part of it. And then, of course, the applications that they have when they get back to the U.S. But more than that, I'd say the primary reason that I wanted to bring students to Ghana, but I think this applies to any international trip, not just Ghana specifically, is just the becoming a global citizen. And I think that's even stronger when you not only meet someone in another country, but you also develop a relationship with them and become friends, and you see them, more than once, and you have experiences together outside of just a student and a teacher. It gives these students an awareness of and a perspective of their own life which will apply to any field they end up having a profession in. It'll apply to their personal lives. It'll apply to everything that they do. And to me, that's that is the most important reason why we do international travel or travel studies in a college.
To me, I usually like to think of myself in like two different ways: me as a musician, and then me as like a person. And as a musician, just like they have mentioned, if you are a percussionist, you need to be spending time with African rhythms, as you know, it's so important from the African diaspora. All like coming here and experiencing the culture and being a part of it is extremely important if you're going to be a percussionist and a musician in general. And then on a personal level, just being a part of the community and a part of the culture has been very, very fulfilling. It's given me a different perspective on what I think humanity is. It blew me by surprise how much this has changed me already, and I'm sure it will continue to be that way when I'm back home.
And I think it's important to travel to other places and meet people so that you realize that deep down, like, we're all pretty much the same, and we all like sweat when it's hot, and we shiver when it's cold, and we get tired at the end of the day, and we have to go to sleep, and sometimes we're grumpy when we wake up. But that's just a thing, and I think a lot of tension between people or countries comes from just a lack of understanding, and they feel like different is bad and they can't relate to those people. But I think you can relate to any person, really. You just have to get to know them.
They actually see it very loving and also like a great experience to work here as a DMC staff. The reasons are one, they get to know a lot of people, and as the teaching process goes on, they get to make new friends and also get to have that connection with a Western student that come here. And then through that, they get to learn more things that goes on in the world, because it's not everybody that gets to like read the newspaper, listen to the radio, but then having a chat with somebody that is being traveled from a different country or a different world, they get to understand the idea and also what that person likes and what they don't like, the food, the language, and also different various aspects of that new person that they're meeting. Yeah.
I like the job because that's my hobby. I'm a teacher, but once you are working with people, you also have to learn something from them, because it's a culture that we are doing here. So still, you are still learning. It's not like what you have, but you have to learn what they also have. So that's why I'm here, that I love what I'm doing.
What kinds of things have you learned from some of the students?
I would say how they talk when we go out with them, the behavior, how to say thank you, sorry. Like some of us, we don't know that. But once you are working with them, it lets me know more about the way, the importance of saying thank you to someone, or I'm sorry to someone if you offended my brother or my sister. Yeah. So yeah, and they also have some skills, something like the dancing. Some of the students, when they are dancers, they use that. Oh, I've learned. I have a dance that if you guys want me to teach you, it's okay. So they also teach us a dance, and we learn it.
It's something that kind of, I don't want it to die, because I've grown up in a community that with that day, and the value of it that become like a less, because parents don't value it so much to pull their children or encourage their kids to go into music and say, oh, my son is a musician, or know how to play. So these are things that are kind of lagging behind, and I'm really glad to be able to make Bernard who wanted to raise this our African music. You know, it's something that we have. I really impressed to be in the Dagara Music Center where we can raise our own music. People who really know it and study it. It's not like there's like a freestyle. Freestyle, people are not going to know much about it. But when you put it in the education center, it makes it a value. And now I'm glad people, you know, taking music, their profession and, you know, having doctorate degree and big degree in music. So, yeah, I love to be in this space to be able to share the music more. I just pray God to give me long life. Yeah. That's the only thing. Because when you have life, whatever you have to do, you can do it. Yeah.
Yeah, the DMC is an institution, and as an institution, and it has a staff, and as a staff, you have to be paid. So you need to have that financial support and also the incentives, and that makes you feel like you are working in a community that makes you feel like you are a responsible person.
DMC is important because it gives me, now I'm working. I make myself proud because I'll call myself a worker. So that's, I'm so proud, and it's like I'm learning more things here, so it's important to me that I'm working here.
Yeah, it's very important than me because you have so many people here and take good care of them, and they don't have job to do, because when she's continue going, I think everybody, at the end of the day, everybody gets daily bread. So I think it's very important that all of us.
That was another thing about Bernard, you know, that he really tried to help people. Some of the people that are working in the kitchen, they're single moms. One of the women, her husband, you know, died. He was in the army and he died. And so she has 2 children, and Bernard knew that and he would help her. And she's also a dancer. So it works both ways.
And I think like through the work of the DMC, like it has also become like an economic kind of center of Medie, because, you know, there's tourists that are coming in and are contributing to the economy, but not just kind of like your little tourist shops like on the side of the road where like all of the tourists are going. Like most tourists are not coming to Medie, but also investing in like local Gyil makers. Like not many tourists that are just coming to Ghana, not going to the DMC, are going to go buy Gyils. They might buy the little drum, they're not going to buy the big drum. So it's not just the staff as well. I mean, it supports a broader community of artisans, of other people who were invested in the community.
Yeah, that was one of the goals of Bernard, try to be with the community. It brings students in, and it's not only for him alone. He tries to let them also work with the market people, try to work with the community, try to work with the seamstresses. So at the same time, go into the school, even to see how the children are learning in the school.
Yeah.
So this is one of the goals that he's having. So not like only inside, but he tries to share it. He gives everyone and his power. If you be lucky, you find a friend who is interested of what you're doing. That's what it is. It's not for him alone. He shared that power so that even the school, as I'm saying, the school, this school, they benefit a lot from what he's doing.
Because in our native language, Dagara, the name Gyil means together. And anytime you hear the sound of Gyil, you see people traveling like from east, north, west, or then together, and then the sound of the Gyil brings them all together to perform and also have fun, dance as well. Not only people from Ghana, but also around the world. Yeah.
And I think in terms of like for what the DMC does as an institution, I mean, that's kind of what we said, like the mission of the DMC was, right? And most students who are coming here are particularly interested in the Gyil. Not all, right? There are some students that are really like coming to learn dance or drumming, but I think that's what makes the DMC different, right? Like there is not really that, that I can't think of. Like there are other cultural institutions here in Ghana, but there is not one to the same extent as the DMC that the Gyil is truly like the heart of the DMC. And like people do learn other things. Like we're very, I think, pretty good at like allowing people opportunity to explore what they're interested in. But we get a lot of people, both from like abroad, but then also from Ghana, that are coming here to learn the Gyil. Because where else do you really go to go learn the Gyil?
I think it offers a lot to see an alternative keyboard instrument for our students, I guess from a pedagogical standpoint, now that I'm a teacher. Our students study xylophone, marimba, glockenspiel, vibraphone all the time, but those instruments have been inspired by and based on a combination of instruments from around the world, and the Gyil is one of those. And so I think it's nice for them to see creative ways that instrument can be used, the way it can be made, the way it can be played, and the different contexts it can be used in. And for me as a teacher, the importance of the Gyil as an instrument is the perspective that it brings to the other instruments that we study. Beyond that, now that I have a personal relationship with the instrument, it's important to me to continue to play it and to teach it and to share it. Partially because I want the music to spread and to continue, because I like it. I enjoy playing the music. But also, again, with relationships, because I know that there's friends of mine here in Ghana that make these instruments, and I want more people to buy them and to have that experience too. And so that's good for a maker like Tijan to have more business because more people are playing the Gyil.
For me, I like to think of the Gyil as it's a really nice combination of a lot of things that I have experience with, but in like a completely new way. Like how it uses like the pentatonic scale, which is something that we're familiar with and something that we use, and it's also like sort of like a marimba, which is an instrument that that we're very comfortable with. And it also, like, the melody player almost, like, comps on the chords like a jazz musician would do. And I just think it's really cool to see all those different things, like, put into one thing, which is the Gyil, but in, like, a completely new way for me.
I think it's also important because it's important to the people here. And it's really important to not just sit back in the U.S. and think like, oh, the drum set's cool, or all the things that come from the U.S., all of our little things, that's what's important. But we also need to know that what's important to other people should also be important to us.
It's through the appreciation for nature, I think maybe even the replicating of nature, the paying homage to the polyrhythms of life. When you're up north and you hear the droning of the buzz of the birds and the frogs and things, I mean, you hear this kind of feeling that you also get when you hear the xylophones playing in harmony together, and you hear the singing, jubilating, or the wailing. The way everything kind of comes together, it sounds like nature. And I think, the very instrument itself is an homage to the environment from where it was born.
And you can see, you can look you can really see how he does it. And his daughter, I don't know if you've met Matilda, right? So she's 15 now, and I asked her, what's your favorite subject in school? And she said, well, science and math. And I said, oh, your daddy is a great scientist. And she kind of laughed. And I said, but what he does is physics. And I said, that's science. And maybe it's not with test tubes or whatever, but it's all about acoustics and how he's structuring the instrument. So when you look in the kiln that he has, the oven for drying the wood, and what he knows about the wood. you know, when you hear him talk about that it hopefully people will have a better respect for the instrument. So when it comes to the deforestation, it's like, oh, I went to Ghana and I think I'll bring one of those home, and then you never use it or it gets trashed somehow. I don't see my students doing that. If they have those things, they respect them. You know, it's anyway. My thought is, if you mistreat them, they're going to jump up and grab you anyway. So you better be nice to your Gyil.
Some of the great builders, you know, like T. John, would go to say that each instrument has a spirit. And I think that coming from the natural world, the wood and the gourds and the spider's web and the blood, sweat, and tears that go into it from the maker, everything being tied together with a leather, and everything being, you know, sacred and blessed at every step of the way. You know, there's a spirit that comes from that instrument. And I think that's something that you can hear. You know, anything crafted by hand, you get that feeling, you know, when you see it even. You don't even have to hear it. You just, the look of it, like, whoa, there's something there. That's not something you buy at Walmart. That is somebody's hand, you know. It takes hours and hours to do it well. Years even to allow to chop the tree, allow the wood to dry, extract the oils, the Gyil ma, you know, the old mother Gyil from which all of the Gyils at the Dagara Music Center and the thousands of Gyils that have made it across the ocean to the United States, all coming from the tuning of the Gyil ma. Wow.
Obviously it's incomparable. I've never met the person who made any of my guitars, and Tijan didn't happen to make my particular Gyil, but either way, it's just, you know, we walk 2 houses down from the DMC, and here's this wonderful space with this giant, I don't know, what do you call it? It's like a giant pizza oven for Gyil bars, and
that's a great description for it. I mean,
yeah.
It really is. Wow.
And Tijan, you know, just watching him work on other people's instruments too, and like how it works, and tuning methods, and when he played a bar and then lowered the calabash to it and it got so much louder, I was like, whoa, that really does something. And and he's so generous with his knowledge, and, you know, he'll answer any questions about the process, and I feel like I'm meeting like Leo Fender or Gibson or whatever, like the guy, you know. So it's quite exciting.
I would agree with you. It's so amazing to be so connected to the instrument, and I feel connected to the earth playing this instrument. Like, I can see the materials, and I see that he's carving the wood, and I see the calabash, and they use the spider webs and everything, and I just feel so connected to the universe when I play, and it feels magical to just watch him make them and like see the process and see the like fur wrapped around, like everything about it is just what I never expected. I've seen pictures of Gyils and like researched some, but I didn't know that it would be so magical to play. And it's not just like the earth connection, but then the human connection of like, wow, not only did I get to watch him make it, but then I got to hang out with him later. Like, how cool is that?
Yeah, I think in a lot of instruments back home, it's almost like they try to hide the way it's made. You don't see where one piece of wood connects to another. It's, top secret. The presentation is it's to effectively like remove the creation process from your experience as much as possible to like present something as if it, you know, was handed down from God or something. And here you can see, oh cool, that's where they put the spiderweb things, and that's how they strung the bars together, and the calabashes are lined up such a way like you could almost imagine making it yourself by looking at it. I mean, I'm sure it would just be terrible. It would take many years to learn how to make it sound good, but I just mean to say it's less mysterious and thusly like I don't know, it feels more personal.
Yeah, the instruments back home seem like they're made to look beautiful and not necessarily sound beautiful or to like help you connect to other people, but I just feel more connected to the Gyil and like djembe drums and everything. Yeah, so we have Orff xylophones at home, and like they look really nice. Like the keys are the same exact size, and they're perfectly shiny, and like they look really beautiful. Like,
and every instrument looks exactly the same.
every instrument looks exactly the same, but then like we've gone into the Gyil room at the DMC, and there's like 30 Gyils in there, and all of them look so different, and each of the keys has different wood patterns, and like they're so gorgeous though, and they just remind me of the earth and like of nature, and I think they're more beautiful than the ones at home, but it's nice that they're not so uniform and so like this is a xylophone and xylophones look like this.
Right.
So
yeah, they told us from the first day that once you pick a Gyil, you should stick to that one, and I thought that was kind of like a poetic thing, because I could say the same thing to my students who are playing factory churned out ukuleles, just to give them like a sense of ownership. But it's like, no, actually you need to know, oh yeah, in this song avoid the one with the little black line on it, and then when you play another one that doesn't have that little black line, you're screwed. So.
Yeah, which makes you feel more connected to your instrument, because it doesn't say A, B, C, D at the end. Like, I have to know my instrument to play it. Like, I have to know where the little spot is to get the right key.
Yeah.
Which has been challenging in its own way, but in a beautiful way.
Yeah. My Gyil had a broken bar, and Tijan's actually working on fixing it right now. And he said that the bar that had broken wasn't one of the ones that he had made, and that the wood itself was cut with machines, and thusly the natural grain of the wood wasn't there. So he said he usually chisels it directly out, or maybe not he, but whoever gets the wood, like chisels it directly out from a particular part of the tree trunk, a certain distance from the edge or whatever, I don't know. But when you chisel it, it finds its own natural, grain, or whatever you want to say. But when you just kind of put it through it doesn't. It ignores those natural lines, and thusly the keys are not quite as strong. So that the connection to the material goes so deep that it's like you can't even use like a circular saw. You have to use like a chisel and a hammer or something. That just adds another layer to the beauty of this process that I didn't know about until just today, which I only learned because an inferior bar key broke.
So, are you referring to the extra layer being like the labor that goes into it?
Yeah.
Like
and not just the labor in terms of, like when you eat a meal and you reflect on, okay, who drove this thing from here to here, who planted this, who harvested this, and so many, and that just all goes to one of the 20 ingredients, right? It's so many hands went into making this happen. It's not just you cooking it or whatever.
Right.
But yeah, so that, but then also just the care at every level. Sure, I could just put this through a machine that cuts it into perfectly sized blocks, but then the keys won't be as strong. And here's the process that takes a lot of time. I hesitate to put it this simply, but the kind of Western notion that perfection, beauty is imperfection, in a sense that if something looks completely symmetrical or whatever, that means it's superior. But in fact, the process that would make a Gyil look perfectly symmetrical inherently lowers the quality of the instrument. It's a beautiful thing to learn, and not just in a poetic way, but for Tijan to explain very specifically how that physically works. It's very eye-opening.
I do know that Bernard was very adamant that the Gyil was, the rosewood was central to what the Gyil was as an instrument. He always informed students that it was made from this tree, and that was important to him to assert that, it comes from this tree, and this is, I can't quite remember all the reasons why that he would say that, this is important, but he always included that, and to me that does say something about, to a Gyil player, what it means for them and kind of their playing of the instrument, and if, you know, in teaching people, that's something that you also teach and include. So.
The more deforestation that goes on, the less you have to attract the moisture, and the Sahara is moving down, you know. So that's a huge consideration. And so there, the trees, the legal wood for the Gyils, I don't know how much more there is of that. And it's not a fast-growing tree. So, I mean, it's a form of rosewood, as I understand it, and so there are certain countries that it's illegal for us to import, or for them to even to export rosewood, and so that might become the case here. I don't know.
And I think that we're really lucky how almost accessible rosewood, like marimbas as well as Gyils, are to us. You know, it's like we're very lucky, I think, to be able to share this wood.
Because even those of us that use these materials in our everyday life or in our professional lives, many people are unaware of the consequences of extracting these materials, and furthermore, the sustainability of using these materials. There are certain places, because of climate change, that gourds don't grow as well as they used to. The liga also is not sustainably cut here in Ghana specifically. I hear they're going to Burkina Faso to gather some of their materials. And as the effects of climate change affect, you know, all regions of the world, and the dry seasons are becoming drier and longer, some of these materials are becoming more and more precious. And it's important that we are aware of that.
tree has a spiritual power of healing. The fundamental why we cut the tree, because the tree is a living being. Liga tree is a living being, just like any other tree. But it is a special tree because its sonic properties can heal people. And so when you're making music, when you're cutting a tree to make musical instrument, you have to pay homage to killing a life. And when you kill this life of a tree and make a musical instrument of it, it could perform its function, its purpose of healing people or making people happy through ceremonies, happy ceremonies, sad ceremonies, healing ceremonies. So the liga tree is apportioned to that healing purpose. That's why we use it as the tree for us to make our instrument.